Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. It's Robert Douglas, and this is the Deploy Friday webcast, sponsored by Platform.sh. And today, we're going to be talking about a very scary topic, cybersecurity. And with me to talk about that, I have actually a former colleague of mine from Platform.sh, Yevgen, and a guest from just down the road from me in Stuttgart, Mirko. And I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves in a moment, but some of the things we're going to be talking about on this episode include the types of attacks that security professionals are seeing in the wild today, the ones that keep them awake, the ones that scare them the most, so we can understand where the actual threat lies. And then we're going to focus a little bit specifically on threats that are seen towards our supply chains and the Internet of Things, as more and more devices are connected to the internet and run programs on our behalf and send data over the wire. Then the attack surface that people have to take control of things that are important to us and around us is growing. So we're going to talk about that as well. But let's get the introductions out of the way. Yevgen, who are you? Where are you? And tell me a little bit about your history so that we know what your relationship to cybersecurity is.
Sure. So hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure, definitely. Well, I'm currently working as a security researcher, security research lead at spiderSilk. And I pass my days mostly researching vulnerabilities on a large scale. So going and finding vulnerabilities and understanding who's affected by them and how to help them protect themselves. I've been in the field actually professionally for a bit more than 5 years, so professional cybersecurity, and worked in different places. So I had a chance to work at Bedside, at some bank-related services, and the biggest impact on my cybersecurity research and everything was actually at Bedside. There I had a chance to work with malicious applications and understanding the actual workflow of the malicious actors. So how do they connect? What are dependencies that they need? Like, it's not someone just randomly attacking someone on the internet. It's actually a big chain of things that is required to start working. So you need someone who both understands development, someone who understands how to infect people and stuff like that. So that was my highest moment. And yeah, I've been in IT for like more than 10 years and started as a system administrator in the university. So I've seen some interesting stuff also there.
Fantastic. And I look forward to picking your brain on that workflow of attack without giving too many details away, without giving people the blueprints, but getting a feel for the complexity and the sophistication. That would be really interesting. Thank you. Mirko, how about yourself?
Yeah, awesome. Let me introduce myself. My name is Mirko. I'm from Stuttgart in Germany. Currently an entrepreneur running a cybersecurity company here in Stuttgart, Asvin, which is particularly focusing to increase the cybersecurity and Internet of Things. But from my history, well, a former hacker, turning from the black side or dark side of life to the good side. Let me bring in my knowledge from a lot of things we have done in the past. And by that, I bring in this experience to organizations to help them to get more secure, to be more aware, to increase their cybersecurity. And now, as I said, running.
Interesting. So without incriminating yourself too much, tell us a little bit more about what it means to be a hacker. How can you go on a public webcast and say that? And what does that even mean?
First of all, because it's all from the lawyer perspective, it's all safe.
Okay.
Secondly, it's like we have to. There are 50 shades of gray if you go into the hacker community. Like for the people out there are white hat hackers, black hat. Normally you say white hacks are the good guys who have a look on systems, finding vulnerabilities. They're interested in, let's say, finding vulnerabilities, but then do a so-called responsible disclosure. It means like to inform the people that there is a vulnerability. And there is the black side, the dark side, which is using the vulnerability maybe for cyber criminal activities. This is the typical way how we see hacking. but there are 50 shades of gray. There's a lot maybe in between. So even if you do hacking in Germany, it's not allowed. It's not allowed to have actively a look into vulnerabilities or to use hacking tools. So by that, you're already running into a situation where it's maybe officially illegal what you're doing, even if you're a cybersecurity researcher. So if I look into hacking, I have a positive attitude on it. We are not talking about cyber criminals, but sometimes it's not so easy to find the way where it's going from the good attitudes to the bad side. This is more complicated.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. So let's break open the conversation with some just painting a landscape. I think everybody who's an internet professional and spends a lot of significant time online is aware of some of the basic attacks that are out there. We get emails that tempt us to, try to get us to do things that would reveal our personal data in a way that would let somebody gain access to our websites, our bank accounts, our telephone, who knows. As a programmer, we learn about cross-site scripting attacks and dependency injection attacks, and some very basic things that we need to look out for when we're writing web applications. We use two-factor authentication. What's actually going on out there, though? When you're a security researcher, what are the things that you're monitoring in terms of threat and threat level that keep you up at night and make you worry about your own safety?
Yeah, so in most cases, at least from my side, I had a chance to look at a few vulnerabilities like in the past months, and one of them was an interesting one. So it's something really simple. It's a vulnerability called proxy shell, and that you can actually get access to a Microsoft-powered email server. So it sounds like that's nothing much, but it doesn't require you anything prior. So just to get access to a company email server, you just send a few requests and you are there. So it's amazing that like software, both closed source and open source software, still has this kind of vulnerabilities that are easily exploitable by the attackers. And I mean, it's really interesting to see people starting to attack. Like there was notifications after from US government and other big companies, and people were not able to fix it as soon as possible. Well, because it's a complex topic. You can't just like double click and install a patch, because in some cases the patches take time. You need to test it. You need to see if everything's working, and it's a very like long-term issue. So there still are companies that have this vulnerability, and you can get access to those web servers or email servers. But after you're getting access there, I mean, in some cases it wouldn't be much. So you get access to someone's emails, some financial information. But sure, it's just as simple as that. But the issue is someone who is knowledgeable enough. So there are different levels of hackers. Some hackers are just going through things that are easier to grasp and just to attack, like without any issues. So they go for, so I can steal credit card information from someone, and well, that's a win for them. So they get their credit card information, then they reuse it, they buy some stuff, and well, that's a game over for them. So they don't need anything more from a person. But there are sophisticated hackers, even like we've heard about them, about like government attackers and stuff like that actually go a long path after this. So they get access to the mail server, then they get access to Active Directory, so the server where all the information about the users is stored in Microsoft environment. And after that, they get access to everything that the company owns. So all the servers that are present in that company. I mean, there you get much more than the credit card details. You get the actual personal information. You get access to all the servers. You get access to all the PCs in the network. And it's really interesting to see that people trust stuff that is already inside the network. So from an attacker perspective, like if you attack a company that is big and they just look at something on outside, they can be protecting the company very well. So they just slap in a firewall, just add some rules, and you can only access, for example, port 80 and 443 to the servers that they provide. But after that, the firewalls might be a bit looser. So when you have already access to some cyber at the company, you are further into there, and you might find something more interesting inside that. So yeah, it's really interesting to see that it still happens, and it's critical for a company. I mean, if a company loses access to all the data, it's in some cases it might be a game over for the company. I mean, we also seen ransomware being mentioned everywhere, and people actually encrypting everything and asking for money after that. And we've seen the impact. So companies paying millions of dollars after that.
Can we pause there, and maybe Mirko, you can incorporate my question into whatever you were going to say. But so ransomware is when a hacker gets into whatever, a website or a company's servers, and they get access to an important amount of data or the entire website, and they basically brick it and say, I'll unlock it for you if you do something, which very often comes in the form of send, $1 million to this Bitcoin address or something like that, right? So if I've oversimplified ransomware or left something out, Mirko, you can address that, but I just wanted to throw that out.
No, I mean, it's like the ransomware is a super interesting topic, because what we have seen in the past months and years is that, I mean, how ransomware attacks were increasing. And this is in fact in behind something which is rather interesting, because what we have seen as well from the attacker perspective, that the attackers are industrializing their attacks. There's even a supply chain in the cyber criminal organizations now. So in the past, it was one group who had used an exploit, and they were, for example, then trying to place their exploit by a phishing attack, and then they're doing this ransomware stuff. Now what we see is, as a trend, is ransomware for rent. So the attackers originally, I mean, they have the exploit, they have the tools to perform a ransomware attack, but they don't do the ransomware attack by themselves anymore. The rents, the negotiation, the Bitcoin transaction and stuff, they don't want to do that. All what they're doing is they're renting their platforms towards other people who have to do then the dirty business. And this industrialization has increased dramatically the amount of ransomware attacks we have seen now in the couple of months.
I was frantically searching for that while you were giving me that explanation for something I saw on Twitter the other day, and I'm kicking myself under the table very subtly so you can't see it happening. Ouch, ouch. That I didn't find it and bring it for the episode. I had meant to, but somebody had posted a letter. Maybe you guys saw it and I can shed light on it, but it was a public letter from a ransomware group that was complaining about their target having gone to the press. And the entire tone of the letter was, hey, we're playing by the rules here. We attacked you. We're doing our job. Now it's your job to pay us and be nice. We told you not to go to the press. Now we're releasing your data. And they had this incredible tone of like moral superiority. Like, we all know the rules of the game here, people. We attack you, you pay us. That's how it works. What didn't you understand?
Yeah, I think you need to understand from the attacker and from the defense or counter perspective that this is already a super high professional business on all sides. So, for example, if you're a company and you're getting attacked by a ransomware gang, I mean, there are technical specialists in behind who are performing like breaching the company. Then there are others in there who are doing the negotiation and stuff like that. And from the counter perspective, we have now the same situation, like, because if you have a cyber insurance, for example, you're getting people involved who are professional on negotiation on ransomware. So we have two parties who are super professional. If you have seen, like, there are some documents out there of ransomware negotiation. I mean, they're starting with a price of, let's say, 10 million, and then the insurance negotiators trying to press the price. And I mean, there's a lot of professional behavior in behind there.
So that implies very much that the ransomware people have won at that point. It's just up to their negotiating skills and the victim's ability to pay to see how much money actually gets transacted at that point. But like, they've actually accomplished their goal and there's no recourse is the implication there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
in most cases, they're already inside. They already encrypted the data. They already have the company behind them, and they already they did one. So that's the question of now, as we were saying, to understand how much can you extract on the company.
so
And if
sorry, go ahead.
yeah. And if the company is already looking for cyber insurance and already thinking with talking with negotiator and stuff like that, then they need that data. So they already lost that, and there's just a question of how much they will be paying for that.
So anybody listening out there who has data that you just couldn't do without, take note. Your security of that data is actually critically important to you, because you don't want to be in the position where it's gone and you feel like you'd do anything to get it back, and the other person bargaining with you knows that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's rather critical business relations. So we know, for example, of suppliers. It's not a first-tier supplier of Apple. It's a third-tier supplier, but they are dealing, for example, with confidential data of the new molds of the new iPhone cases and stuff like that. Something where Apple is super, super scared about the privacy of this data, and there are terrible fees if this data is leaked and stuff like that. So now you're the third-tier supplier with the mold data, and this is stolen by a ransomware attack. I mean, this is a super critical position for you as a victim.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you know of cases where that's happened?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That sounds awful.
And then you're not dealing only with the ransomware gang. You have to deal with the Apple lawyers again. I mean,
what's worse?
Exactly. What's worse?
So, I mean, there's probably not even one good recipe for protecting yourself from that type of attack. It sounds like, first of all, if you've got something that's really valuable, then and people know about it, then you can face a really sophisticated attack with people who have specialized and are working not just as a gang on their own, but like a supply chain of gangs to team up against you. How do you protect yourself?
Well, I think there is the smallest thing that you can do is have backups. So I think it's the easiest thing to implement, but it's one of the things that companies still today struggle to use it. I mean,
oh, so you've encrypted my data? You mean the data that I have on this USB drive right here?
Yes. For example, it's as simple as that. I mean, definitely having backups of all the computers in the network, of everything on a different location, on a different servers that don't have access directly. It's harder to implement, but as simple as having backup of the data, it's really easy. So if you need to protect something, at least have a backup from that. If it's something really critical, at least have 3, 4, 5 times a backup of that. And I mean, it's really interesting to see that people are still today trying to run from that. So I mean, there is already this possibility, but they're still running away from it. They're still not using it. They're still thinking about, oh, so yeah, it will never happen to me. It's not a big issue. It happens to all of my competitors, but no, it's not going to happen to me. So this approach, I think, is very bad for a company.
I mean,
yeah, and we have a comment from the audience. Thanks, Adam. And he says it can actually get down to risk management. How important is the data? And it might be less of a loss to let it leak than give it to the hackers. After all, the hackers' goal is to get money. But if they've actually taken it from you and you don't have a backup, then it might not just be about leaking it. It might be about your actual business operations. But then there's probably also the case where I do have a backup, so I can operate my business. But let's say my business was very sensitive in some way and the data would do great damage to me or other people if it were leaked. Then that would obviate the potency of the backup as a strategy.
Yeah, I mean, if you are facing an attack of a professional, very good organized ransomware gang, they are not only, they're using as well a multi-factor ransomware strategy. So what is one factor? Of course, to encrypt your data just to stop your business operations and bring up pressure by time because you have to stop your operations and stuff like that. That's already super critical. Let's take, we've seen that for a lot of government organizations, medical organizations and stuff like that, super critical. But of course, they steal the data because sometimes the IP is, I mean, sometimes you can say, well, I have a backup. Great. But then as an attacker, I say, well, look, that's great. You have a backup. I have the IP. And have a look like for in the game industry or movie industry and stuff like that. There have been a lot of very worthful data stolen where you pay because you want your sources back. And third is, now we are at the level of trust. Can you trust these people? I mean, and this is part of the negotiation. Then when you pay your ransom, that they need to disclose all the vulnerabilities or exploits they have used to get into your system. Because anyway, you need to set up your systems new because you can't trust them anymore. And
you have to burn it to the ground.
You have
burn
to
it with
burn
fire.
it to the ground because they had been in. You don't know what kind of backdoors are left and stuff like that.
I mean, there are rootkits that are really hard to detect, as far as I understand. So, I mean, how do you really want to go looking for rootkits? Is that what you're good at, or do you just want to buy a new computer?
Yeah, so you really need to know by that what kind of exploits have been used to avoid that the attackers will return. And then there's interesting statistics out there. It's 20% of all companies who have faced a ransomware attack are facing the second.
Only 20%. I would think that it's.
I mean, 20% is a lot.
That is a lot, but
that is an unknown 20%.
I mean,
that's a known 20%.
Yes.
So these ransomware groups, these professionals, you've really painted an amazing picture of them. How can you trust them, though, if you pay their price, that they don't just come back and say, you know what, you've had a really good quarter. We've still got that data. It's still incriminating. Do you see occurrences of that happening where they just like come and get their rent every year, half year, whatever, from a victim and say, that thing you don't want people to know, you still don't want people to know it, right?
Well, in my case, I haven't seen like people abusing that power. I mean, definitely there are cases when ransomware group is still inside. They're still saying, oh yeah, so we want more money for this. Like, but the company is also not. Well, people are behind that. They're thinking, oh, so we already paid. They didn't go for their up of their bargain, so they didn't respond like they should be. So they didn't provide the information. They didn't confirm that's already deleted or something like that, or they started leaking documents. I mean, it's up to the company to define if they want to spend more, just to see if they're lucky enough, and the others will stop. And I think after 2, maybe even in some very serious cases, 3 times, the company will just understand that it's wrong. And in the US, for example, there is, government is asking for companies to not pay the ransom because essentially you're funding the hackers. So they attacked you today. For example, they don't have any budget. They have like last $1,000, whatever, and they got access to your company. They're trying to extract more information for their life. So they will be living with that money, and they can expand their operations. So today you get attacked. Tomorrow you're funding them enough for other companies to get attacked. So they can buy new exploits, they can buy exploit kits, they can buy better hardware, they can brute force faster the keys that they find, hashes, whatever. And so it doesn't end like at that, doesn't end at you. So yeah, definitely the company in some cases have to pay because their operation is stopped, there is nothing more to do. But it's really a bad thing from like attackers, at looking to the attackers to just pay it.
But look, I mean, it's not like what people need to understand is like if there was, for example, a phishing attack and there was an exploit, and by the exploit, the attackers went into the system and then they are up-leveling it, selling this access to a ransomware for a rent platform and stuff like that. Normally, it's more than 170 days that the people are in the system. So what they really do is they have a look what kind of systems are critical systems, for example, in a company. Even they know exactly what is the maximum amount of ransom I can take because I know what are the turnovers of the company and stuff like that. So really, it's important to understand that this is not a simple blackmail. This is a really high sophisticated industry. And for example, for the US, if you tell as a government, and you are not allowed to pay ransom. That's nice. That's a legal perspective. But in reality, it's always the individual pain. And the question to a company, you can return to operation if you pay now, or you will never go to operation anymore. I mean, what's the question there? It's like, of course they will pay. I mean, we know it from hostage industry in the past. There are countries out there where it's not allowed to pay ransom money if there is a hostage ongoing. But of course companies are paying. But nobody is telling about that.
Yeah. Wow. So, Yevgen, you talked briefly about a marketplace for exploits and hacks. So for the people out there listening who are trying to understand how scary and dangerous the world is, and I understand somewhere on Earth there's a saying, the less you know, the better you sleep. So we're going to ruin your night's sleep tonight. So what kind of things are available on the marketplace? What, I don't want to know where to find that, but is it hard to get to that? Is it really, is it really hard, or is it just really available? Is it like going to Amazon?
No, it's like going to Amazon. It's
no, that's the wrong answer. I wanted it to be hard.
I know that's the wrong answer, but it's really very simple. Like it's you don't need to go to dark web or whatever the cool thing for Tories or for forums that are closed by the registration, but it's really easy. I mean, depending obviously on what we're looking. If you're looking for zero-day exploits, so something that is very sophisticated and costs a lot of money, like nobody will be providing access to this publicly for you if you're just an individual looking to buy this kind of things. I mean, you will have to have some reputation there. You will have to confirm that you have the money, and so it will be harder for something more complex. But if you're looking for some malware for some company that is providing you ransomware as a service, like Mirko was mentioning, it's really easy. So there are hundreds of forums, I mean, even thousands, if I may. And in those forums, there are different like sub-forums. Some of them are people actually saying access to the credit card information. I mean, both actual physical credit card information, so something that you would write on a magnetic stripe, and you would go to ATM and actually get the money from it. I mean, those type of like attacks, of carding attacks, are much complicated and much harder to get into too. So it's not just as simple as like install malware on one machine and it's done. But it also, there is a service for that. There is people who buy this, there is people who sell this. Obviously, you can find information about credit card information, about emails, passwords, a lot of things, and it's really available. And in many cases, you would see forums from Russia, from Ukraine, well, United States also. But the thing is, there is a lot of people who are at the level that they need this as soon as possible. So malicious actors in many cases might be people who, well, obviously depending on the type of attacks, but the people behind them might not be like very knowledgeable. So they might not have like hundreds of years in experience, basically. But they are selling access to Trojans, like source code of Trojans, access to bank accounts. So you can easily actually find people actually posting this information about, for example, someone posting and saying, oh, I have this PayPal account, but I don't have a money mule behind this for example, in a specific country. So a way to extract that money from that account without someone else. So for example, person works with...
Wait, stop.
Yeah.
A money mule is a person who can help you launder money that you've stolen from PayPal, for example.
Yes. Okay. For example, yes. So it's a simple process, really. Someone who hacks into account, they send that money to someone else's bank account, and that person just goes to you and give you the money. I mean, to you, it might be several levels of layers. So in that case, it might be not as direct as you just send the money and someone gets you there. But there are actual networks of people who manage money moves. So they send like fake announcements to jobs. So they like open these job offers that make you like $100 per hour or something like that. They might actually be true, but you will be money laundering money for someone else. And I mean, it's at that level that there is services for that on all the levels. So
wait, so wait, they hire you at a really high rate so that they can pay you money in a seemingly legit way, and then maybe part of the deal they have with you is that. How does that work? I don't even.
No, it's a bit more simpler. So you might not even know that you're doing money laundering. I mean, in most cases you don't. And so imagine a malicious person does a transfer to your bank. So you get hired at a very cool company that does some online marketing. And one of the days, boss comes and tells you, oh, so this is, I have this issue that I can't actually get the money wired to one of the suppliers that I need there. And they tell you, oh, so can you please receive this money and transfer that money to someone else? And as a worker, you think, so I'm hired at this company. I mean, if they have some issues there, and if they are like global company, obviously I lie, they might think, oh, okay, so I might help the company. And then they receive the money, they send it to the second person, to the person that the money requires to go. And then you have another layer that the money is cleaner. So, I mean, definitely, if a bank is the same one, then it's easier to get the money back, unless somebody already extracted the money and they're running away. It can be done with fake documents and stuff like that, but it's a very seamless process. I mean,
wow. Mom, I have a new job. That's great, son. What are you? I'm a money mule.
I mean, you need to understand that we are talking about organized crime here.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just simple organized crime. And even we know that the mafia and other who are since centuries in the organized crime business, they have stepped in the cyber area as well. So we see the same structures, we see the same level of how people are getting abused, we see the same methods there. All what we are now adding is the digital layer on it, the scalability of digital layers, and the globalization as well, because your money mule can be anywhere. So I think that's what we see as well is like in terms of the attackers, because like if you go to Hollywood movies, maybe hackers are still this kind of mystic whatever guys.
Yeah, they're young guys in their 20s who are loners who can type really fast, and within seconds of opening up their computer have brought down whole government systems or something.
Yeah, okay, exactly. That's still the image we see from Hollywood, but what we see in reality that it has turned like that. A lot of people, because you can now download hacking tools, or you can take a ransomware as a rent. There are much more other services you can take for a rent. So you don't need to be a technical, very savvy person to run into cyber frauds, because there are services out there. And this is one element we see on the cybercrime. And on the second, we see super high sophisticated attacks. Like if you ask me what scares me, then for example, the NSO group Pegasus attack is scaring. Why? Because this was a so-called zero-click exploit. And
that was
what does
NSO Pegasus?
Yep. And what does it mean, zero-click? It means I can do nothing. They hack my phone. I even don't need to take an action. Like, I don't need to click on this attachment or open this message or whatever. It's just hacked because it's a zero click. And this is really scaring, because it means, and this was at Apple, obviously, and Apple is to me a very responsible vendor in terms of cybersecurity. They're patching rather quick and stuff like that. But the systems are so complicated now that you have so-called zero-click vulnerabilities, or you have zero-day exploits. And then additionally, we see that the state actors are stepping into cybersecurity, for example, because they are buying this kind of exploits to run their own cyber programs. So we have now a market for exploits, and there are professional exploit brokers in there to sell the zero-day exploits to the national state agencies, and you're getting $1 million as a broker, and they're just, I mean, we are creating a market for cyber insecurity, and that's really scaring.
I'm sorry, but this is going to make the reboot of the Godfather trilogy extraordinarily boring. Yeah. I sent him a program he couldn't not open. No, it doesn't work. So who's protecting us?
Bad Robert, you know.
Who's protecting us?
Well,
everyone is. I mean, Apple tries to protect us, but there is just so much code that they need to review. There is so much things that they launch that they can physically have enough people to just review everything, to confirm everything is working. I mean, you can have antivirus on your phone. I mean, I I don't know any good examples of those, but they might find something that is, well, not very sophisticated. So like malicious banking trojans that are not well written, they can catch those. But yeah, as 0 days attacks, like 0 click and 0 days, it's just too much. I mean, you can't just protect yourself from that unless you don't use a phone or you use Nokia 3310.
Should I be running antivirus software on my computer? I mean, that's a huge industry is selling antivirus software, right? Should I be running some?
Yeah, but I mean, it's not ideal. So it will find the malware that was already known that to exist. Mm-hmm. So you can be protected from Zeus from 2012 or whatever, but it's 2021. So if someone, like some government wants to attack you, or some big corporation like that has the interest to get access to your machine or to your phone or whatever, they have the money and they have the possibilities. So it's if someone actually big is after you specifically, then there is no way to find it unless you don't use any technology. But like at the end of the day, it's like
and if you go to antivirus, I mean, keep in mind that the antivirus software needs to pick rather deep in your operating system because it needs all access to scan your system and stuff like that. So if you're a super clever attacker, what kind of software industry you will attack? Of course, the antivirus industry. So you would like to breach into an antivirus company to inject your own.
Oh, but that could never happen.
Oh, that happened. I mean, that's obviously what happened. So then we are in this scary supply chain attack stuff where the cybersecurity industry itself is becoming a target and their products are getting the problem because the product needs to be really deeply tied into the customer system. Otherwise, they're useless. And there are some people out there who say antivirus is useless.
I'm sorry, gentlemen. I'm going to have to step away from this conversation and just turn the electricity off.
Yeah, it's a good start. And cutting the wires of network, that's also like part of the process.
So I want to get to the supply chain and IoT question that we promised we'd talk about, but I do have one more question about this most recent topic about the marketware and being a bad guy. It just seems to me like if I, with my lousy skills, were to start Googling around about where can I get 0-day exploit software, have money, please contact me. What could go wrong? Like, this is probably not a recommended behavior if you want to like stay on the good side of somebody, right? Like, are there people looking out for the procurers of these exploits? Are there like honeypot traps, like where they're advertising bad stuff and you could like, I want that, and they're like, haha, put your hands behind your back, Mr. Douglas?
Yeah, of course. Yes. We are here in the high level boys business. Of course you find everything. Traps.
Yeah, I mean that's on both sides. So malicious people would be thinking, oh, so this guy has money, he just mentioned that. And so if you're not knowledgeable enough, he might just tell you, like, for example, yes, I have this malware, this 0-day malware or 0-day exploit for attack that you can use, and just send you like a malicious application and tell you that, so this is a builder, as something that will build an actual package that will allow you to send the malware to someone else. So if you open that on your PC and you're infected. I mean, and so those.
Yeah, how do you trust somebody who's selling you malware? You'd probably have to be able to inspect it on an isolated machine and know what you're looking for at some level and have some very good skills before you would even be safe running it.
True.
But if it's a virtual machine exploit, it's getting a little bit more difficult.
Okay.
So there is like this blue pill attacks like a few years back that you could actually easily escape a virtual machine. So it gets to the level that the attacks are very sophisticated, and they can actually exit a virtual machine and access to your host. So it's just amazing to see that happen. Not in a good sense, like
Nope.
people getting hacked by that.
Yeah, but to be honest, we are talking here. If we talk about the dark side and about the gray side or whatever, this is a super high professional business. So the people who are as well, like if you are in the hacking community and stuff like that, originally you know what to do, and even there are as well for people who are in there are advices out there, for example, how to behave in terms of ethics and stuff like that. I only can recommend to go into the line of the proper ethics, because then you're not burning yourself. Because at the end, we have good examples. People have been burned when they have dealt with cyber criminals, but they have as well burned when they have dealt with nation state actors, because obviously the rules are super complicated in this game. So
in other words, you're saying that if you're going to be in that world, you've got to imagine that you're in a room full of thieves with knives. So don't stab anybody.
Yeah. Don't try to play their game, but because obviously they are playing this game since centuries or decades, so they're always much better.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
It's like an actual idea that there is. It's a well-known saying that there is no honor among thieves. So thieves will be thieves. I mean, we've heard of examples of malicious groups like ransomware services being rented to other people, and they getting all the money. So you as a malicious attacker go to a specific like ransomware service, you provide them clients, so you get the installation package, you install it on some company's machine, and you're expecting to get ransom. So you will be paid ransom. In theory. In practice, there were already discussions that people are getting robbed by those malicious people. So not the directly people, but the people who are providing the ransomware service. They understand that, so this is a big target. They're just asking for whatever, 1K, 10K USD, and the other company at the ransomware service understands, so we can actually extract 100K, and this malicious user is, he's no one. So we can just steal from him. And that happens, yeah.
So, Mirko, let's pivot here. And your company actually specializes in the security of Internet of Things. And in the supply chain? What does the threat level look like if you expand it to include that? I mean, we've been talking about like computers and data, but like these days, light bulbs have computers in them. Why light bulbs?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think the fantastic situation out there is that everything is getting connected. So we have a lot of new opportunities, but as well, it's, I think every day it's about 7 million devices which are connected to the internet globally every day. So, and many of them, for example, are running with simple secured passwords. So all what I need to do is to scan for devices, and I can find these devices because they are almost in the majority directly connected to the internet without firewall and stuff like that. And
what kind of devices? Not everybody is really up to date, myself included, on like how widespread the Internet of Things as a concept has become. What are the devices you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, the most popular devices are IP cameras, because people obviously use them for the protection of their home. Very, very wise choice if you don't change your password. With smart doorbells. These are
smart doorbells is like you can customize your ringtone.
Yeah, no, it's like because you have a camera in there, so
you're right.
And then you see like the parcel is arriving, and you can talk directly through your app.
Yeah, we have one of those. Should I be scared of it?
Yeah, you should.
Well, I think,
I mean, at the end, everything will be connected, to be honest. What you can find, but in the smart home environment.
But I don't know if ours is like connected to the internet. I just assumed it was like an internal system.
No, but like have a look on the application. So if you use it by app, for example, it's rather obvious that it needs to be connected through the internet, because otherwise you can't do that. My favorite, for example, smart sex toys. I mean, this was.
Well, now you've got my attention. A sex toy that's like connected to the internet.
Yes, this was during the pandemic situation. There was a boom of smart sex toys, so because people had been really physical divorced, and then they're using the sex toys for their pleasure, and you can control the sex toy of couples by the app and stuff like that. It's all fancy stuff, but I mean, security and privacy is a nightmare.
Wow. I don't think I would buy something like that.
Yeah.
Not in a judgmental way, but I definitely don't trust that type of way.
To me, it's like this is the best way of penetration testing.
Nice.
Okay, we will move on from that. This good. Okay, so in terms of supply chain, so like these are consumer devices that you're talking about, and consumers are not really the biggest targets. Like, you know, maybe a consumer who's the CEO of a company, but like when I think about like a smart, you know, I don't know. I mean, are the attackers going for that? These sound like they're horribly insecure things, and maybe they're like a chain in the link for a more sophisticated attack. But like, if you like freeze my doorbell, I am not paying you 10K. I'm just replacing my doorbell.
Yeah, but you're not very familiar to the business models, because maybe if I run a so-called botnet, first of all, the main idea is to get as much as possible devices under my control. Mm-hmm. And then I can think about what can I do with these devices. And I don't want that your doorbell is disturbed normally. It's just you don't know that your device is already hijacked, but I have it under control. And then I can perform certain attacks. For example, I can use this for using distributed denial of service attack rent machine. So what I can use, all doorbells connected under my control are firing to a specific server and tearing down.
You're not actually telling me that doorbells are taking my site down, are you?
Yes, it's doorbells. Or what we have seen is like if you go for the revenues, are people out there with Instagram accounts? Yes. Have anybody on the audience or bought any followers? Maybe. Mm-hmm. There's a big business out there on buying followers in Instagram, and your doorbell is maybe running a client who is faking an Instagram account. So this is one of your followers. But people are paying for it. The point is always people pay for
You mean when I go in TikTok later and dance, all those people are actually just doorbells?
Yes. Can happen, yes.
Okay. Well, you just elevated my opinion of Instagram even further than where it was.
Yeah, but it's like if you look at cybersecurity, sometimes people are always looking on this super brutal, oh, someone will attack me and will steal my data and stuff like that. No.
So what's Karami? What is this link that I pulled up?
So that's a presentation by Mohammed Karami. It's his name, about distributed denial of service attacks.
And sometimes it's just like using your infrastructure to perform something, like to make money out of it, like selling followers on Instagram. I mean, that's the service people are using, like paying Bitcoins or PayPal or whatever on a website. They don't know that this Instagram followers will be created by a botnet of IP cameras. But I can use this infrastructure for free.
Amazing. Yeah. It just says at one level we've deployed far more computing resource than we're actually able to use, and these people are just making it more efficient. They're like, you know, like high density computing. It brings your doorbell and it likes your posts.
Yeah. Or we have seen, like if you go for this Bitcoin, not Bitcoin, Monero mining, it's mainly used, like that there are botnets out there who are just capturing your device and then they're running mining operations on it. So you're paying by your electric bill. I mean, that's what's happening effectively. You're paying with your processor, your computing unit is using more energy because it's mining in behind. But normally I will hide this operation, but then I can use, if I've captured thousands of servers, tie them together, and they are mining for me, well, then I'm getting directly my Moneros. It's great.
So how do you tie them together? Do people in this industry like use Kubernetes to do that? Or is there...
Well,
are people running Kubernetes on doorbells? That's what I want to know.
There's like, I mean, this is insane if you see the technical progress, what's happening. Like if you think about virtualization in the Internet of Things, that's really something which is currently going on, because it's more easier to deploy software if this is packed in a Kubernetes stuff. But of course, we're adding more and more layers of complexity. And by adding layers of complexity, we are increasing the attack surface. So from an attacker perspective, this is a wonderful world.
So honestly, like Monero or Bitcoin mining on my camera or my doorbell liking my Instagram for me, they don't scare me so much. Even if they like DDoS a website, that doesn't scare me so much. When you mentioned supply chain, and I in the most naive way started to think into what that would look like, then what I was expecting you to say was that there was some sort of ransomware that said, okay, you will not get your like die to put into your extrusion machine unless you pay money, right? Like you could shut down the business that way too. It's like you don't have to like freeze their data. You could just like make all the RFID chips on that pallet disappear.
I mean, look, for example, if we what happens in industry, and there are some certain products out there who are super complex already, and now they're getting smart. Let's take autonomous car, or let's take a car and stuff like that. They are already super complex product, not easy to secure, and they have a safety element in there. So what do you think? I mean, if you're driving, I mean, we're in Germany, so there's no speed limit out there for the people. So you're driving with your 200 miles per hour on the German Autobahn, and then you're getting a lock of your brake and a display which tells you, yeah, now immediately please send the bitcoins to this wallet. I mean, you will do that, isn't it?
That's science fiction, what you just said, though, right? Please tell me.
Yeah, let's say it's just sticking some elements together here already existing. So we have seen, of course, people who could remotely get control over the brakes of a connected car. That's already happened. We had out there an industry who perfectly is working on how to make payments over cryptocurrencies for ransomware. I mean, stick this together and you are immediately in this kind of scenario.
Yeah, that's a different type of gas fee, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Cory Doctorow for a long time would, he talked in a few talks that I heard him speak. He mentioned all of the ways in which computing has like infiltrated our lives and built dependency on it, and the security model for those devices isn't keeping up. And he speaks about it also through the lens of free software. Do you really want your pacemaker, the program running your pacemaker, to be closed source software, and you don't know if there's a proximity Bluetooth connection that you update the firmware with your pacemaker with? There's an interface to the outside. How do you do it? How can you trust the software, and how can you trust that you're not going to, like ransomware, I'll turn your pacemaker off if you don't pay me.
Yeah. And we already, I mean, we have seen these vulnerabilities for pacemaker, for example. There are vulnerabilities out there with.
So that's not science fiction; that's real life.
Not science fiction, and with terrible consequences for the people who have these pacemakers, because they had to be really replaced on operation and stuff like that. So,
that's a very hard firmware update.
Yeah, or even doing a firmware update on a pacemaker means that the pacemaker needs to reset. So you have to go to a medical center doing that. I think that's not an experience you really want to have. So
no.
Going on it.
Okay, so I want to leave with something actionable as an individual or as a business owner. Let's go around the table. I'm going to participate too, but I'll go last. What's the top one or two things that you can just recommend that individuals and companies do? So you can make two answers, one for individuals, one for companies, to make sure that they're doing the most they can to stay safe on the internet. Yevgen, you go first.
Sure. So I think one of the biggest ones, actually both for people and for companies, is education. So if the people don't know that opening a malicious link can get them to the point of someone dying, then it's important to understand that. So there should be a security awareness, like talks, understanding inside the company and for the people. So people will be protected as their bank's accounts are protected, and companies will be protected as their infrastructure is protected. And yeah, the second thing is a great question. I mean, there is a lot of hard things to do, and the idea is to think as an attacker. So, for example, if you're buying something online, try to think as an attacker. I mean, it doesn't have to be something complicated or something very, very complex. Just the idea of, oh, so if I would attack someone who's trying to enter the credit card details, how could I protect myself? And answering this type of questions. Oh, so I don't know much about security, but I see that there is HTTPS website, and that website is the actual website that I'm paying. So understanding and trying to think as an attacker, I think these two things will definitely help both companies and individuals.
Okay, thank you. Mirko?
Rather easy as a company, patch and update your systems. If you don't patch and update your systems, you are doomed. That's number one, but there's no 100% security. On a personal level, just think about that the richest man of the world had dick pics on his iPhone, and he was super aware that no one can access his personal dick pics on the iPhone, but it happened because his iPhone had been targeted and hacked.
Jeff Bezos.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, there is a certain level of information you should not trust to an electronic system. Rather simple.
A certain level of information you should not trust to an electronic system.
Yeah, and you
okay.
can by yourself what kind of information you're storing there.
You mean precisely an online electronic system? Like if he had stored those air gap, then it would have never happened.
Yeah. Now let's see, there are as well attacks out there because the air gap is a big topic. So there are as well attacks out there where you can access over the air gap. No, it's really don't. Some certain information should be not stored on an electronic system.
Okay, well, that to the archivist in me, that's raising all sorts of interesting questions. Okay, I think. Yeah, what can I add to that conversation besides patching your software, being judicious about the type of information that you actually save and where you save it and how you save it? I would say that maybe my contribution to that is to embrace encryption, learn what encryption is, so that it's not just a weapon that can be pointed at you, but a tool that you can use to protect yourself, and that the entire basis of not losing information in transit or at rest is encryption, and that is primarily the only protection that we actually have. So if you, and everybody's using encryption, probably as you watch this or listen to this, you're using encryption to do so. Just if it says HTTPS in your browser, then you are. But knowing what encryption is, how to use encryption tools, and having good hygiene for managing your keys. That's my tip for the audience. And turn off the electricity. Just turn it all off.
Yeah. And use quantum safe encryption.
Exactly. Right, exactly. If you haven't mastered qubits, you have no business in the internet. Just go home. All right. Well, thank you, both of you. As the church bells outside are announcing, we've reached the top of the hour. It's the end of the broadcast. Thank you for watching. I hope that you're scared to death of your security profile on the internet, because that will motivate you now to go and learn and educate and protect and be judicious and encrypt. So thank you, and tune in next week for another Deploy Friday. Thank you, Mirko. Thank you, Yevgen. That was really fascinating, and I'm legitimately scared now. So bye-bye.
Bye.